A very good evening to everyone. Welcome in the class. The topic of class is Hybridoma Technology. But before beginning with the topic, let us have a small introduction about Unacademy. Unacademy is one of the India's largest platform for the preparation of CSIR UGC NET Examination. And as we say in the beginning, let's crack CSIR UGC NET together. I'm your educator Farida Johar Bandukwala. I have a teaching experience of 10 years. I've qualified MP SLET examination and I'm pursuing PhD from School of Biotechnology, DAVV. If you're opting for Unacademy for your preparation, what all things you are going to get? You're going to get daily life classes so that you will be always in that momentum of studies. The syllabus is very much structured as there are 13 units. It is quite difficult to sum them up in a small span of time, but that is possible with Unacademy because educators they precisely design the whole syllabus in a well structured manner. Then live tests and quizzes are there so that you can evaluate timely how much you have learned so far. And then unlimited access towards all the videos which have been recorded in the category is available if you are going for the subscription. Unacademy tries to give as many free live classes as it can. These free live classes are conducted on YouTube and these free live classes are conducted on a special platform. These two are the places where the live classes are conducted. So presently you're watching this free live class under the channel name Let's Crack CSIR UGC NET, and special classes you can avail the facility of this by downloading the Unacademy learning app from Play Store. When you will download this app, you will be asked to fill the referral code. So my referral code is FB01. Use my referral code to log into class, and after using my referral code you will be eligible to attend my special classes as well as the special classes of other educators, right? And follow my profile for getting the updates of all the upcoming videos, and you can attend the classes. After that there's a plus subscription, and this plus subscription is a paid subscription. The amount is very much pocket friendly. For 12 months the amount is 11,550 rupees. For 24 months the amount is 16,800 rupees. Recently a major discount is going on, and mm, the prices are soon going to increase, so just make the most out of it. So the prices are already very less, but still you can get an additional 10% discount if you are using my referral code FB01. By using my referral code FB01, you will be getting an additional 10% discount. So the prices for 12 months are going to come down to 10,395, and for 24 months it is going to be 15,120 rupees. So this was a little introduction about Unacademy. Now let us move towards the topic, that is Hybridoma Technology. So when we are talking about hybridoma technology, we need to know what is antibodies. We need to know what is monoclonal antibodies. Then we need to use this hybridoma technology for the production of monoclonal antibodies, and finally these after production it needs to be purified. So hybridoma technology is basically a technology by which the monoclonal antibodies are produced. So hybridoma technology gives rise to monoclonal antibodies. If you are saying hybridoma technology is going to give rise to monoclonal antibodies, so first we need to know what are antibodies. So antibody is nothing but a protein which is used by immune system, protein of immune system to identify and identify neutralize, because anything foreign to the body is not good for body. So identification and then neutralization of foreign objects of foreign objects like bacteria and viruses. So a protein of immune system which can identify and neutralize the foreign objects like bacteria and viruses. So each antibody will recognize a specific antigen which is unique to the target. So if we are saying there is an antibody, This antibody cannot have its multiple roles. It cannot go and attack 2 3 different kind of foreign objects. No, that is not the case. But what is the case is antibody is specific to its target. So production of monoclonal antibody is hybridoma technology. This hybridoma technology is not something which is normally prevalent in nature, but we are using a specific uh, thing of nature to produce the hybrid cells, which are giving rise to just the monoclonal antibodies, right? So the antibodies which are actually specific to a target, they are called as monoclonal antibodies. And the antibodies, various antibodies, a group of antibodies, if they are specific and they are acting on different kind of targets, they are called as polyclonal antibodies, right? So a single antibody is no doubt going to be specific to a target, but when we are saying polyclonal, it means there are various different type of cells which are giving rise to different type of antibodies, and that bunch is called as monoclonal antibodies, right? And a single type of cell is actually made to produce n number of cells, that is the clone of the cells. And now these cells, if they go on further to produce the antibodies, those all antibodies are going to be of a single type. So that is called as monoclonal antibodies. So let us see what is monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies can be written as like this map, or it can also be written as monoclonal antibodies. These are the things how which it can be represented or given in the question, right? So monoclonal antibodies are the antibodies that are made up of, that are made by identical identical immune cells. Like what I told you, if a single type of cell is made into clones, then it is called as identical clones, identical immune cells that are clones to a unique parents, that are clones of a unique parent cell, unique parent cell, they are called as monoclonal antibody. Now what is the site of action of these monoclonal antibodies? They are monovalent. They are monovalent in their affinity. Monovalent affinity. Monovalent affinity means they are going to bind to the same epitope. Can bind same epitope. What is an epitope? If we are seeing a antigen, if this is an antigen, there will be many different things on its surface, like this, or like this. So all these surface things for which the antibody they arise, they are called as monoclonal, they are called as antibodies, and these things which can elicit the immune response, they are called as epitopes. Epitopes. These are epitopes. These all things are epitopes, and for each epitope there will be a specific antibody, right? So the affinity of monoclonal antibody will be specific. Like if it is produced for this thing, if there are many antibodies produced for just this epitope, it is called as monoclonal antibodies. Now monoclonal antibodies, obviously they can be used for treatment. Other thing, the purpose of production of the monoclonal antibody is to detect and purify the substances. Detect and purify substances. This is the function of monoclonal antibody. Now let us talk once again that what is the difference between, though I have already told you what is the difference between monoclonal antibodies and polyclonal antibodies. So monoclonal antibodies are antibodies that are identical because they are produced by one type of immune cells. Identical antibodies as they are produced by one type of immune cells. One type of immune cells. After that, polyclonal antibodies. These are the antibodies that are derived from different cells. Antibodies derived from different cell lines, and they differ in the amino acid sequences. Differ in amino acid sequences. So monoclonal antibodies, the amino acid sequence would be similar. But in polyclonal antibody, the amino acid sequence is going to be different. So we have seen the basic now. Now let us talk about its history, a little history, because in many state level examination they ask about history, and sometimes in gate also they ask. So the idea of magic bullets, the idea of magic bullets was given by Paul Ehrlich at the beginning of 20th century, and he postulated that if the selective compound against the disease causing organism could be made, it will be very easy to cure the disease by injecting the toxin with selective compounds. So Paul Ehrlich, he gave the idea about magic bullet. Then McIntosh got Nobel Prize for this treatment of the syphilis. Nobel Prize for syphilis. After that, till 1970s or in 1970s, myeloma cell was known, which is able to grow for unlimited period of time. Myeloma cells identification, that it has a quality of unlimited life span. After that, in year 1975, another scientist, and his name is Kohler and Milstein, they succeeded in fusing the myeloma cell with the B cells. So this is the time when they created the hybridoma Hybridoma cells. And these hybridoma cells, they have the capacity of antibody production. So the production of hybridoma cell, the credit goes to Kohler and Milstein. Now one more scientist in the year 1988, the name of the scientist is Greg Winter and his team, they gave the technique to humanize the monoclonal antibodies. Production of a human monoclonal antibody, eliminating the reaction that other antibody would have caused, because previously the antibodies, they were non-specific to humans because they were produced by some other species. So in year 1988, Greg Winter, what he along with his colleagues, what he did, he humanized the monoclonal antibody. So whenever it is used for treatment, it is not going to elicit any kind of different reaction, or it is not going to actually shake up the immune system for some other kind of issues, right? So we have now seen the concept, we have now seen the history. Now we need to know what are the steps of monoclonal antibodies, right? So now when we are talking about production of monoclonal antibodies, we are going to talk in terms of mouse or some other species, not the human species. So first is immunization of mouse. Immunization of mouse. So what do we mean by immunization of mouse? The mouse would be injected with the antigen which we have to actually use for production of the monoclonal antibodies. So injecting mouse with antigen. So immunization of mouse means injecting the mouse with antigen for which we need to prepare the antibody, right? This is the purpose. After that, when we have actually immunized the mouse will have immune reaction. So now we need to get those cells which are having the sensitivity towards this particular antibody. So another step is isolation of spleen cells. Isolation of spleen cells. So the cells which will be further responsible for production of the antibodies, they are the spleen cells. So the cells which have been So the cells which have been taken for this purpose are the spleen cells, right? So spleen cells would be isolated. After isolation of spleen cells, it is production of hybridoma cells. So production of hybridoma cells. So production of hybridoma cells, how is this hybridoma cells will be produced? So spleen cells would be taken and myeloma cells will be taken. Myeloma cells. So they are already there on the culture, these myeloma cells. So we are not saying extraction of myeloma cells or anything. They are already maintained on a culture medium, and these are the spleen cells. Spleen cells and myeloma cells, they will be actually undergoing a fusion and hybridoma cells will be produced. And when hybridoma cells would be produced, now we need to separate the unhybridized cells, that is we need to separate out the spleen cells and myeloma cells from the hybrid cells. So the next is screening of hybridoma cells. Screening of hybridoma cells. Screening of hybridoma cells for identifying the hybrid cells or hybridoma cells, and we need to eliminate out the spleen cells. These are the spleen cells, these are the myeloma cells. So we just need that spleen cells and myeloma cells should be eliminated out. So when they are eliminated out through the screening, and how they are eliminated out and what all things we have to use, these all things I am going to tell you. Everything we are going to discuss. So this is just the outline. So after screening of hybridoma cells, the next thing is culturing of hybridoma cells, because we need to produce a single type of antibody, so they need to be cultured. Culturing means they will multiply into many number of cells. After when they have survived on this culture, we need to screen the antibody. So screening for desired antibody. Screening for desired antibody. After screening, selection and culture of after this selection and culture of screened antibody. Selection and culture of screened antibody. These are some of the steps which are used. So now we will be dealing each and every step in detail, and there you will actually come across the hybridoma technology. So production of hybrid cells for the production of monoclonal antibody is hybridoma technology, but there are many things which are actually involved in this, why we are doing this, from where we are getting this. So we are going to do everything in the same class. So first is immunization of mouse. Immunization of mouse. So when we are saying immunization of mouse, how are we going to do? Mice are immunized. Mice are immunized 2 to 3 weeks. Every 2 to 3 weeks with an antigen. So every 2 to 3 weeks they will be given the antigen for which we need to produce the monoclonal antibody. After immunization of mice, isolation of spleen cell. Isolation of spleen cells. So spleen cells, they'll be isolated and then be cultured on suitable medium. Isolated and cultured. So the mouse will be sacrificed, a slit will be made, and then after opening the ventral side of the mouse, the spleen will be extracted, the spleen will be crushed into small pieces, and then after that the cells would be cultured. So what are the characteristics of spleen cells? When we are saying spleen cells, what are the characters? That it is having a limited lifespan. Limited lifespan. After some time they are going to die. After that there is a medium that is called as there is an enzyme called as Hpgrt Hpgrt. So they have Hpgrt enzyme for salvage pathway. Enzyme for salvage pathway. Salvage pathway for what? Salvage pathway of nucleotide production. Hpgrt enzyme for nucleotide production. It is going to use Hpgrt enzyme for salvage pathway. Because there are two pathways for nucleotide production, that is de novo pathway and salvage pathway. Salvage pathway. Now what is going to happen is the de novo pathway would need everything from the starting, and salvage pathway is going to use the raw material already present there in the cell. So de novo pathway would not be applicable in the spleen cell. The salvage pathway will be applicable and they'll be surviving. So they are able, and then another characteristic is they are able to produce the antibody production whenever they will be exposed to the antigen. So after that, isolation of myeloma cell. I told you, isolation of myeloma cell. So myeloma cells should be isolated from wherever we are saying, or if it is maintained on a culture already, great. I don't know why the screen is doing like this. So isolation of myeloma cells. So myeloma cells, they'll be isolated from same species. They won't be isolated from some other species. Same species myeloma cell should be there. Now what are the characteristics of these myeloma cells? So myeloma cells, they have unlimited lifespan. Then normal cells tend to have a low growth fraction at the saturation density, when neoplastic cells continue to grow faster after reaching the confluence. So they have this capability of multiplying as many number of times as it can. Where is the screen gone? So here's the screen. So this is the characteristic of our myeloma cell. Then it cannot use the purine salvage pathway as the enzyme Hpgrt is deficient. So Hpgrt enzyme is deficient. So first is it is immortal, and second is it cannot use the salvage pathway, right? So this is the thing. After that, production of hybridoma. So this is the topic name, hybridoma cells. So previous to this, we need to know many things that we have seen. Now myeloma cells are grown on the medium, that is 8-azaguanine, to ensure that hypersensitivity to the HAT medium. They are grown on myeloma cells grown on 8-azaguanine week before the fusion. Before the fusion, they will be grown on this to ensure their hypersensitivity to HAT medium. Myeloma cells will be grown on this. After that, cells, they are fused, that is the myeloma cells plus spleen cells. Spleen cells, they will be fused in polyethylene glycol, and sometimes Sendai virus mediated method is also used. So polyethylene glycol mediated method or Sendai virus mediated method is used for fusion, and there will be production of hybridoma cells. After this fusion, though most likely method is the chemical method, that is polyethylene glycol mediated, and then production of hybridoma cells will occur. After that, they'll be grown on HAT medium. So when we are saying HAT, we used HAT over here also. So what is this hat? This hat is hypoxanthine, aminopterin, thymidine. So hat medium contains hypoxanthine, aminopterin and thymidine. After production of hybridoma cells, the next thing is screening of hybridoma cells. Right? So aminopterin, the function of aminopterin, just in the hat, the middle one A, and aminopterin, its function is to block the de novo pathway. Blocks de novo pathway. Now it blocks this de novo pathway in all cells. It is going to block the de novo pathway in the myeloma cells, and it is going to block this pathway in spleen cells. In all of them, it is going to block. So spleen cell already it has a damaged salvage pathway, and de novo pathway it cannot take place in the spleen cell because of aminopterin. And myeloma cells, they are fluent in salvage pathway, so the spleen cells, they can both of them, they won't be doing de novo pathway. Myeloma is having a damaged salvage pathway, but spleen cells, they have a live salvage pathway, right? So this is the thing, de novo pathway, then all of these cells, they have to utilize the salvage pathway. Without salvage pathway, they cannot actually survive. They have to utilize the salvage pathway for the nucleotide synthesis in the presence of hypoxanthine. Just give me a second, there is some issue in the system, so just give me a second. I don't know why it is happening like this, so I hope everything works well now. So spleen cells and myeloma cells. So myeloma cells, they cannot survive because of this. So for this they require Hgrt gene for the hypoxanthine. Let us elaborate this also. Hypoxanthine, phosphoguanine, R for transferase. So aminopterin, Hpgrt gene. So Hpgrt gene is live in the spleen cells, and myeloma cells, they are lacking this gene, hence they will die of starvation. So spleen cells will live for some time, but it has a limited lifespan, so after some time they are going to die. And myeloma cells, they cannot survive at all on the hat medium because they'll die of starvation. They won't have the salvage pathway working, they don't have the de novo pathway to take up because of the aminopterin. So anyway, the fate of the myeloma cell is to die. So let us write that the B cells are having this gene, Hpgrt gene, alive in them, but they die off because of the limited lifespan. So they die. So in the end, they die. Now talking about hybridoma cells. Hpgrt is damaged in them, but unlimited lifespan. So hybridoma cells, they have, I was getting confused between myeloma and hybridoma. So hybridoma, Hpgrt gene is live, so hybridoma cells, they are going to survive. And lastly, myeloma cells, Hpgrt is defective in them, and de novo pathway also it cannot take because of aminopterin. So in the end, the fate of the myeloma cell is to die. So like this, all of them are having a specific lifespan and specific role. Now culturing of hybridoma cell for production of monoclonal antibody. Culturing hybridoma cells for production of monoclonal antibodies. So hybridoma cells are separated and they are cultured on one cell per well. So one cell per well it will be cultured. Then cells are called clonal culture, as these are derived from the single type of cells and therefore they are identical. So clonal culture is called as clonal culture is the word given for these cells, because these all cells they are identified from the same cell, obtained from single type of cell, right? Then screening would be done. Screening done for desired antibody. So screening for desired antibody, which technique is used for that? Let us see this. Screening for desired antibody. So how this screening is done for desired antibody? By perform ELISA. Antigens are immobilized. Antigens are immobilized in the wells, and antibodies were transferred so they can bind. So they can bind to antigen. So this is the way how it is performed. Antibody, they are immobilized in the wells and antibodies were transferred so that they can bind to the antigen. So this is the selection method. Now after that, how are you going to actually select the antibody? So selection of antibodies. So desired antibodies are grown in in mass culture after getting positive result. So they'll be subjected to the mass production. How they are actually produced at mass. So the use of hybridoma technology is not just this screening, but we need the monoclonal antibody in vast amount. So production of monoclonal antibodies. So production of monoclonal antibody in vivo. How this will occur? So in this procedure, mice or rats are used. Mice is used. The immune system of the animal would be suppressed 1 to 2 weeks before the injection of hybridoma cell will be done. So immune system suppressed 1 to 2 weeks before injection of hybridoma cells intraperitoneally. Peritoneally. So injection of the hybridoma cell is done intraperitoneally. Remember this also. And remember, immune system is suppressed so that the cells, when we are introducing in them, they do not elicit some kind of immune response. So suppression is done by injecting a primer such as pristine or fruits incomplete adjuvants like this. The suppression would be done. So suppression by injection of pristine or Freon's incomplete adjuvants would be done, and hybridoma cells then multiply in the peritoneal cavity. Hybridoma cells multiply in peritoneal cavity, right? It multiplies over there. So after that, the acetic fluid which will be formed in a very rich source, which will be formed and which will be a very rich source of the secreted antibody would be collected. So acetic fluid contains secreted antibodies. So when an adequate amount of acids are formed, the animal is killed and acetic fluid is collected. So acetic fluid, it is formed in the acids. So when large amount of acids are there, the mouse will be killed, mice will be killed, and acetic fluid collected. So sometimes this acetic fluid is trapped or drained from the peritoneal cavity while the animal is under the anesthesia. That can also be done, with a second and final harvest being the taken once the acids are formed. So monoclonal antibody product can be harvested 5 to 21 days after the injection of hybridoma cells. So 5 to 21 days after injection of hybridoma cells, the harvest can be taken. So approximately 5 ml of ascites can be obtained from a mouse, and 5 ml of ascites is going to give that 10 to 40 ml of monoclonal antibody from a rat. Thus, for the production of monoclonal antibody with a given specificity, it may be necessary to use more than 1 mice, 2 mice, depending on the amount of monoclonal antibody which is needed. So, this is the thing. This is not a very cost effective and very what to say, ethical way to obtain the monoclonal antibody. Main advantage behind using this is extremely uh, good type of fluid obtained, and it won't have any kind of other reaction, or it is not going to change. So this is the thing. Now to sum up the thing, let us talk about some of the um, disadvantages of in vivo production. Like already we have seen some, but more systematically the in vivo, because now we are into the age of in vitro production. So what are the disadvantages of in vivo map production? Disadvantages of in vivo map production. What are the disadvantages? So the main disadvantages of aside method is that it is extremely painful to the animal used, and due to the following: that the injection of primer would be done, then the resulting peritonitis caused by the primer, abdominal tension, inverse tumors might also occur in the animal. So it is not a very ethical issue. The monoclonal antibody which are actually produced through this method, they have a reactivity of 60 to 70% as, because it is going to have some kind of interference and own uh, when it is being produced in an animal, so it will have also some of the impact. So this is the thing. Now after that, in vitro production of monoclonal antibodies, so the antibodies produced generally, they express the immunoreactivity of 90 to 95% because they are completely safe. Static and agitated suspension cultures would be used. High cell density bioreactors can be used. Membrane based, matrix based bioreactors can be used. So very nice thing is to go for the in vitro production in today's time. So the method of choice is not in vivo but in vitro method of monoclonal antibody production. Now how this is done, that plastic bags can be used for the suspension cultures. In the plastic bags they can be done. So the plastic bags can be made permeable towards the gases, can be agitated by rocking on trays or flat rocking uh, surfaces. So very easy way is to use the plastic bag. Then airlift fermenter, by scaling up, it can be the choice of fermenter for production of monoclonal antibody. Then bellow cell agitation or aerator culture is another in vitro method. After that, stirrer culture is another in vivo method for the production of monoclonal antibody stirrer culture. So these are some of the things which is actually used these days for the production of monoclonal antibodies. Now, lastly, I told you that we need to go for purification as well. I'm not going in detail about the production because that is not very important according to the examination. You just need to know the basic. What is the use of aminopterin? What is the salvage pathway? What is the de novo pathway? In which cells it is going to work and which cells it is not going to work? That is the main thing. Now, purification. The sample is first conditioned or prepared for the purification. Then cells and cell debris, lipids and clotted material, they'll be removed, and after that the antibody, in case where the desired antibody is produced by a low secreting cell line, the sample is concentrated also by ultracentrifugation, and after that they'll be separated through ion exchange chromatography. Most of the impurity will be removed through this, and after that size exclusion chromatography would be done to get the desired antibody, which is the antibody of choice, antibody in the question. So like this, we have seen hybridoma technology, we have seen monoclonal antibody quite in detail and small span of time, because if one goes to explain this, it can take a longer duration, but in a very precise manner according to exam what all points are important that I have covered. So this is it for this, and as we say in the starting and in the end, let's crack CSIR UGC NET together. And this is the name of our channel, let's YouTube channel. So subscribe our channel if you haven't subscribed our channel yet. Hit the bell icon for getting the notifications regarding the upcoming videos which are done on this channel. And if you really liked my video or you have actually enjoyed learning this process, so give it a thumbs up. Educators like us really get motivated when we see the likes from students. And lastly, just go for the plus subscription. Very less time is left because soon the prices are going to increase from 31st of December. So use my referral code FB01 and get a 10% discount in the subscription charges. So this is it for now. Thank you to all for your patient listening and for being a great audience. Till we meet next time, tomorrow morning we'll be doing a class for CSIR syllabus, and again tomorrow in the evening we'll be doing a class for GATE syllabus. So till then, very good bye from my side. We'll be meeting tomorrow 10:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the evening. So hope to see you there. It's a bye from my side.